were the ones who did stuff you need to do to get it. Why the men? Because men had to impress women to mate. All women have to do is mate to be impressed. At the part of the Bible that says a man who rapes him, this is what you were talking about. Yeah. Got it. Sounds insane if you go through it. Modern Arab Americans run comments about ancient people didn't care about
like Schrodinger's cat, picking and choosing at random depending on the scenario, whether a woman is better than a man or a completely helpless child. Listen to the one we find out of 100 saying a man's a bad guy because he made her feel sad once 4.5 years ago. Destroy this man? You're probably not an incel virgin, right? You're probably the kind of guy who knows some chicks. That's the attack vector always. They go, oh, Andrew Tate, girls.
The brand you wear reflects and represents who you are. So for us, if you wear a Future Looks Bright hat or a valuetainment gear, I'm excited about what's going to be happening, but you're a free thinker, you question things, you like debate. And by the way, last year, 120,000 people got a piece or here. New Future Looks Bright. This is my favorite, the green one. Just yesterday, somebody placed an order for 100 of these. If you watch the PBD black ones, if you smoke cigars and you come to our cigar lounge, we have this high quality lighter cutter and a whole bunch of things. But if you believe the future looks bright, if you follow our content and what we represent with Valuetainment, with PBD Pod for you. So again, go to vtmerch.com, place your order, tell the world that you believe the future looks bright. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And
excluded. And so there were compensation strategies that I developed along those years to kind of prove that I was good enough, that the listeners, the viewers here, to reflect about whatever it is that feels like is burdening them, that's crushing them, that's sucking their life. Saturday, the third day of my vacation, I was out in Blue John Canyon, named for one of the henchmen of Butch Cassidy. It was a canyon that they would rendezvous in after holding up a bank or stealing some horses, robbing a train that they'd ride. So, as remote an area still today as it was 130 years ago, I biked for about 15 miles from where to get to the head of the canyon, and then I was going to hike 15 miles down through the canyon to get back to my truck by the end of the day. So I am out for 5 miles or so through the main slot of Blue John, where it's only really about 3 feet across in places, up to the very narrow sliver of sky that you can see up there. That we were having a great time for a couple hours. We're moving along. My vehicle they tried to get me to come out with them. So we parted ways, made a plan to get together the following day, but I was now on my own. And mid-afternoon, it's again, just barely more than shoulder width and 4-5 stories deep. I dropped dry waterfall. Of course, these canyons are the storm drains of the desert when there's a big thunderhead that comes along amongst the slot, kind of the wine cellar effect of being down in the earth like that. I'm at what's called rocks have fallen into the canyon, become wedged between the narrow walls there. And if you can think of it almost like a staircase. One, though, the largest, about the size of a bus tire. I know I'm going to need to kind of dangle my body off of it to get to the next in the sequence. And rock where I'm holding on to it, and I get to full extension where I'm grabbing on to the boulder and dangling my body below it. 1,000-pound boulder falling from my skull. And so I put my hands up to try to protect myself, get my head out of the way successfully, but I've exposed kind of ricocheting between the walls, and my right arm pushing, probably because it was my dominant hand pushing harder, slams down in front of my chest and becomes wedged once more, as it had been, between the walls of the canyon, but now it's ensnared my arm into this. Come back to that metaphor, for folks, like very few of us have ever had a huge chunk of sandstone fall on one of our body parts, but that feeling of turned upside down, inside out, all in the same moment. There was a total loss of control. I certainly was trying to rip my arm free. I'm trying to lift. I was in a fury, and this rage went on for 15 minutes, a half an hour, 45 minutes, before I was only back into your functioning, rational problem-solving mind, which as a mechanical engineer was very much a strong suit for me. Through that, it was still within the first hour that I even said out loud, Aaron, you're gonna have to cut your arm off. I didn't want to, it freaked my arm off, but I understood the very severe and serious situation that I was in. That if I was otherwise, began working, trying to use my pocket knife to try to cut through the rock, to excavate my hand. It took me through the first night to just the most minute amount compared to perhaps more like a basketball that I would have to remove to get my hand free. I knew I didn't have working on that option was out. But trying to lift the rock, I had my climbing gear. I was prepared for some rappels that were farther along in the canyon, anchor up above me, and began trying to lift the rock with the rope. But I didn't have a steel cable. I wasn't using meant that I'd effectively created a mechanical disadvantage system. I was not going to be able to lift that rock off my arm. Waiting for help, but no one was coming, and my efforts to communicate with the outside world were highly constrained. That packs with the drinking tube coming over your shoulder. I use that insulation as it's thin and stretchable. Think about cutting my arm off, but as I held the knife to my arm, I understood I'm still 8 miles from my truck, and then a 60-mile. And I even chuckled to myself, like, why did I have to buy a stick shift truck? It's just the idea of even if I make it the lens of my camcorder again, that I could feel connected, I could feel love, I would feel lifted up, and I had everything I needed. I knew it was on the list. I was brainstorming, I was going through my STOP, and I'm thinking and coming up with options, but it was at the bottom of the list, failed. And so now it's the only option left. Like, I couldn't wait for help. No one was coming. As far as an intentional rescue, I'd made an information about where I was going to be with my roommates, or I would call my mom and let her know when I was out on one of these, winter solo 14. Yeah, inordinately overconfident, perhaps, because this is not a 14er in the wintertime. And still, obviously, the accountability then developed for me as I understood that I had played a significant role in getting myself into this, but that was how I was going to, I'm going to die here. And even if I die on the way out of here, maybe the probabilities there are better than the certainty that I wasn't just standing in the bottom of a canyon, I was standing in my grave. So I tried on, it was now Monday morning, trying to carve through the rock. It was so dull that I couldn't even cut the hair off my skin, let alone saw into my arm. So I talked to my loved ones, said thank you, reminisced about favorite trips, going to the national parks with but you can also hold it like a dagger. And I'm laughing because it was almost as if I heard the psycho sound effect, as I stabbed myself, and I plunged the knife into my arm, which was success. It was progress. I thought I'd stop, okay, think, breathe, observe, options, plan. And as I gained information, okay, but the bone in there, how could I possibly slice through the boulders and to get through the bone? Again, despair, hitting bottom. But once more, again, with my camera, process over and over again. It's like practicing meditation or yoga, that yes, you're gonna lose your mind at times. A lot of folks that might, high performing, maybe even executives, leaders, that we kind of get in a trap. This was where I knew I was going to die. I carved my name, my epitaph into the wall of the canyon. It was there in stone now, that I would someday see. And I knew then that meant that I was going to get out of there, that little boy just changed everything. And somehow I made it. I was not going to see. And the 6th morning, I was still there, 124 hours of being out in the desert alone. But how am I going to get out? Talk about light bulbs. This was megawatts of electricity going off in my brain as I understand that it was torque, that I could use the boulder. You don't have to cut the bone, Aaron, break the bone. And this smile, comes across my face. Look, it's bigger because I'm going to get out of there. I'm going to get home. I'm going to get a hug from my mom. I'm going to maybe someday see that little boy. And then that was when I realized there are actually two. But what am I going to do? Stop now? Like again? Yeah, again. I reversed the forces. Again, the mechanical engineering mind of my